After being away on business for half a year, I came home early hoping to surprise my girlfriend. I never would have expected that the one who opened the door for me was a man. Not only did he show no sign of guilt, but he even openly invited me to come in and sit down, telling me not to feel uneasy, to treat it like my own home. Stunned, I asked him, "Is this your place?" He replied righteously, "Of course not. Are you dumb or something? This is your home. Don't you recognize it?" I nodded, just about to lose my temper, when Willow came out to explain. "He's my personal chef. He's my dining companion, so I can have someone to eat with. Don't misunderstand." Later, seeing him and my girlfriend using matching bowls, holding matching cups, and cuddling matching pillows, my anger flared. I asked him again, "Is she your girlfriend?" He looked exasperated. "Of course not. Are you going senile? You can't even recognize your own girlfriend." I scratched my head, trying to piece things together, but the next moment, he said, "Bro, you go ahead and eat first. I need to take a little blue pill in a bit. Willow and I have important things to do. No time to waste." Furious, I couldn't listen to any more excuses. I kicked him to the ground. Unexpectedly, he indignantly rebuked me. "Let me make this absolutely clear. There's nothing filthy going on between Willow and me. I carry this medication because I have a congenital cardiovascular condition." "Oh, you're sick, are you?" I sneered. "Then let me help cure you properly." Chapter 1. After 6 months of business trips, the company's overseas operations had finally stabilized. I secretly bought a plane ticket, rushing home the day before Willow's birthday, just to surprise her. On the way back, I imagined several different reactions from Willow. Seeing me, along with the carefully prepared birthday gift, she would definitely be both shocked and excited. Her expression would be priceless. To make sure I didn't miss that moment, I even brought a miniature camera to capture it, something I could look back on in the future. Everything seemed perfect in my head. I just never expected my plan to be ruined right at my doorstep. 602. This is the right place, isn't it? I took 2 steps back, checking the apartment number again, my mind momentarily blank. Then why did my password fail twice? I clearly remembered that the electronic lock code was Willow's birthday. There was no way I could get it wrong. Refusing to believe it, I entered the code again. This time, I focused completely, pressing each number carefully, one at a time. Click. The lock made a sharp sound. Access denied. System locked. Wrong password. That could only mean one thing. Willow had changed the code. I let out a deep sigh, accepting my fate, and pressed the doorbell. After the second chime, a deep, magnetic male voice came from inside. "Just leave the takeout at the door." I froze for a moment, then took another step back to check the apartment number once more. B building. 602. It was definitely my place. The shoe cabinet was the one I bought, and on top of it sat the pair of shoes I had given Willow. Then why was there a man inside? A bad feeling surged in my chest as I pressed the doorbell again. "I already told you. Leave it at the door. Do you not understand human language?" Click. The door suddenly swung open. A tall, lean man appeared in front of me, holding a spatula in his hand, glaring at me with hostility. But in the next second, when he got a clear look at me, his expression shifted ever so slightly. Still, his tone remained unfriendly as he frowned and asked, "Who are you looking for?" I didn't answer. Dragging my suitcase, I pushed past him and walked straight inside. "What the hell are you doing?" Makoto snapped. "This is trespassing. I'll call the cops on you." I ignored him. Instead, I scanned the room, taking in the arrangement of furniture and decorations. Then, I slowly shifted my gaze back to Makoto, narrowing my eyes. "Shouldn't I be the one asking that question?" I said coldly. "Who are you? Why are you in my house? And where is Willow?" Chapter 2. Just as Makoto and I were locked in a tense standoff, a sweet, delicate voice came from the doorway. "You naughty guy, why did you send me such a big bouquet of flowers? It was such a hassle to carry it all the way back." Willow stood at the entrance, changing her shoes as she spoke. "I had to hold it all the way home, and now you have to make it up to me. Give me a good foot massage later." "Okay," she called out twice, but when she didn't hear Makoto respond, she instinctively looked up, only to meet my gaze directly. In that instant, the color drained from her face. She stammered, "George. Why are you back?" As soon as the words left her mouth, she hurried toward me. Makoto hesitated for a moment, then chose not to argue with me anymore. Instead, he turned back into the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of red wine, and casually placed it on the dining table. Willow, on the other hand, ran up to me, unable to hide her excitement as she threw herself into my arms. "You came back so suddenly. Why didn't you tell me in advance?" She hugged me tightly, but I didn't have the urge to return the embrace. The woman in front of me, the one I had been with for 5 years, felt strangely unfamiliar. I asked directly, "Who is he?" I never beat around the bush. I say what I think, straight to the point. Willow frowned slightly. "Him? She looked at me helplessly. You forgot, didn't you? I told you about him before. He's the chef I hired from our neighborhood. He also eats with me sometimes. It gets too boring to eat alone. I furrowed my brows, trying to recall. Now that she mentioned it, I vaguely remembered her bringing it up. Willow was a singer and live-streamed for a living, which often meant irregular meals. Since I had to be away for over half a year, I was worried about her health. So even while traveling, I frequently ordered food deliveries for her. But most of the meals I arranged were healthy salads and home-cooked dishes. She got sick of them after just a week, so she found a small-scale meal service in our neighborhood, someone who would cook fresh meals just for her. It cost about 1,500 yuan a month, and she'd have all 3 meals taken care of, clean, homemade, and nutritious. I remember when she first told me about it, I was fully supportive. I even sent her an extra 10,000 yuan, telling her to get the best meals available and not to skimp on herself. She was thrilled, happily accepted the money, and that was that. I just never expected. Since when did this meal service include cooking at home? Willow explained quickly. Seeing the displeased look on my face, it wasn't like this at first, she said. But later on, fewer and fewer people subscribed to the meal plan, until I was the only one left. So Makoto figured he might as well come over and cook for me directly. As she spoke, Makoto brought out a freshly prepared dish and placed it on the table. He wiped his hands and smiled politely. That's right. It's been tough running a restaurant these past few years, and even the meal service wasn't doing well. This way, Mr. Wong, you can at least try my cooking. Yeah. Sit down and give it a try. Makoto is an amazing cook. It's really delicious. Willow's eyes lit up as she spoke, and she eagerly grabbed a pair of chopsticks for me. I had barely sat down when Makoto casually said to Willow, Willow, Mr. Wong just got home. Shouldn't you get him a drink? Oh, right. Willow suddenly realized, flashing me an apologetic smile before getting up to fetch a drink. She reached for a blue cup on the table, but Makoto clicked his tongue in disapproval. Silly girl, why are you using that one? That's my cup. Willow froze, then quickly put it back, looking a little embarrassed as she searched for another one. She couldn't find one. Makoto chuckled. Dummy. Then, he casually walked over to a cabinet and pulled out a clean glass cup for her. Willow pursed her lips but didn't seem annoyed. One of them was serving rice, the other was pouring me a drink, and I just sat there, watching the two of them move around the kitchen in perfect sync. For a brief moment, I felt like they were the real couple living in this home, and I was just a guest, a distant, unfamiliar guest. That feeling lingered until Willow placed a cup of water in front of me. She naturally wrapped her arms around mine, leaning in close. Honey, why do you look so serious? That single word, honey, snapped me back to reality. Oh, right. Willow was my girlfriend. She and I were the ones who built this home together. I parted my lips, just about to say something. Crash. A loud shattering noise came from the kitchen, followed by Makoto's startled voice. Before I could react, Willow had already rushed over in alarm. I didn't bother looking toward the kitchen, but I could still hear their voices from inside. Ugh. Seriously, you're so clumsy, always making a mess. You never let me have a moment of peace. Makoto sighed. The plate was too slippery. I'm really sorry. Willow's voice softened. It's fine, as long as you're not hurt. Who cares about a broken plate? Then, their voices lowered into quiet murmurs, as if whispering to each other. I closed my eyes. I couldn't hear what they were saying, and honestly, I didn't want to. Chapter 3. The kitchen was quickly cleaned up. Willow and Makoto each carried a bowl of rice as they walked out. One bowl had a little cat printed on it. The other had a little dog. One was placed in front of Willow, the other in front of Makoto. After they sat down naturally, Makoto suddenly scratched his head with an apologetic smile. Ah, crap, I forgot. We only have 2 bowls at home. He then turned to me. Bro, let me find you another one. Without waiting for my response, he quickly ran back to the kitchen and returned moments later, carrying a bowl of rice, served in a disposable plastic container. With a face full of faux regret, he placed it in front of me. I simply stared at him, silently watching his every move. When he sat down again, I couldn't help but curl my lips into a sarcastic smirk. On the other side, Willow remained oblivious to the atmosphere. She didn't even notice the plastic bowl and utensils in front of me. Instead, she eagerly picked up a chicken wing and started eating, completely immersed in her meal. It's really delicious. You should try it, she urged me with excitement. Makoto followed up with a smirk. Yeah, go ahead. Make yourself at home. No need to be so formal with me. His words made me laugh in anger. But what was truly ridiculous, what really made my stomach churn, was that Willow didn't react at all. Somewhere, deep in her subconscious, she must have felt that it was normal for Makoto to speak like that. That's why she didn't say anything. That's why she was too absorbed in her food to care. And that realization, that was what truly made my heart sink. Just then, Makoto suddenly let out an exaggerated ah. and smacked his forehead with a laugh. I almost forgot. I need to take my pills. If I don't take them now, it'll be too late. This one works best on an empty stomach. As he spoke, he casually pulled out a box of medication from his pocket. The moment I saw that familiar packaging, my eyelid twitched involuntarily. The moment I saw what was beneath it, my mind exploded with a deafening buzz, because there, right under the box of pills, was a pack of condoms. I felt like my head had been struck by lightning. Makoto shot me a provocative glance, held his chopsticks between his lips, and playfully called out, "Silly girl, pour me a glass of water." "Okay," Willow replied without hesitation, automatically moving to fetch him a drink. I can't even describe how I felt in that moment. All I knew was, I couldn't hold back anymore. If I endured this any longer, I would be the biggest joke in history. So the moment Willow placed the glass of water in front of Makoto, I abruptly stood up and swept the entire table clean. Dishes, bowls, chopsticks, and steaming food all went crashing onto the floor. Hot soup splashed everywhere, scalding Makoto as he instinctively jumped up with a shriek. He shivered, glaring at me with rage. "Mr. Wong, I don't know what you're upset about, but no matter how angry you are, you shouldn't take it out on food." "George." Willow's voice was sharp with frustration. She slammed her chopsticks down and snapped, "Are you out of your mind? I didn't want to say anything to you at first, but seriously, you came home with a sour face, and now you're making a scene. What the hell do you want?" "Apologize to Makoto." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You want me to apologize?" She lifted her chin, eyes burning with defiance. "Yes." Then, smack. I didn't hesitate. I lifted my hand and slapped Willow hard across the face. Makoto lunged at me in anger, but before he could touch me, I drove a powerful kick straight into his stomach, sending him crashing onto the floor, right into the mess of spilled food. I stepped on his chest, pinning him down. Then, I grabbed his pills, crushed them into the soup-stained floor, and shoved them toward his mouth. "Apologize." "Sure," I said coldly, "but before I do, how about you explain something to me first? Why the hell did you come here to cook, while carrying Viagra and condoms?" Willow's face turned ghostly pale. Chapter 4. "What are you talking about? That's impossible," Willow murmured to herself. Disbelief etched all over her face. Her gaze shifted hesitantly toward the open package in my hand, where the unmistakable contents were laid bare. Her lips pressed together instinctively, a faint blush creeping onto her cheeks. And then, when she realized what she had just done, her expression crumbled. She quickly looked up at me, her panic intensifying when she saw my mocking smirk. No, honey, listen to me. I have no idea why he has that stuff. He's just a cook. I'm just someone who eats." She turned to Makoto in desperation. "Makoto, say something. You know better than anyone that we're innocent. Why did you even bring those things? Explain yourself." But Makoto didn't answer. He was too busy gagging and struggling. His furious eyes locked onto mine. Seeing him remain silent, Willow scrambled toward me, grabbing my arm. "Please, George, you have to believe me. We're just friends. It's pure friendship. A single man and a single woman, alone in the same house. The man brings her flowers, carries pills and condoms, and she wants me to believe it's just friendship." She might dare to say it, but even she didn't have the guts to believe it. I pulled my arm away from her grip, my face completely devoid of expression. Willow was truly panicking now. Her voice trembled. "We've been together for over 5 years. If you don't trust him, don't you at least trust me? I'm a traditional woman. I don't even wear short skirts. I swear to you, I have no idea why he brought those things." Tears streamed down her face as she cried and swore her innocence, looking ready to swear on her life if it would convince me. I was done. I didn't want to argue anymore. Instead, I turned my attention to Makoto. From the moment I walked through that door, he had done nothing but provoke me. He had the audacity to act like this was his home. Makoto glared at me, his eyes bloodshot and filled with defiance. His voice was laced with venom. "George, I have nothing to explain. The truth speaks for itself. I just know that when someone has a filthy heart, they'll see filth everywhere they look." He deliberately emphasized the last words, his tone dripping with provocation. I wasn't about to indulge him. Instead, I pressed my foot down harder, my tone ice cold. "Oh, then tell me, what exactly are you using those pills for? Are you eating them like candy, using them as an appetizer? And those condoms, are they for your own personal entertainment?" I leaned down slightly, my voice filled with unmasked sarcasm. "By your logic, next time I walk in and find the two of you naked in bed, you'll still say I'm overthinking it, that you were just talking." I straightened, looking down at him. "Do you believe what you're saying?" Makoto's face twisted into something grotesque, an ugly mix of humiliation and rage. His lips trembled, his skin turning a sickly mix of white and purple. He hadn't expected me to call him out so directly, to expose his pathetic excuses without mercy. In that moment, he looked like nothing more than a ridiculous, pitiful clown. His fingers curled into fists as he turned to Willow. The moment their eyes met, Willow immediately looked away, dropping her gaze to the floor. Makoto clenched his jaw, then snapped his attention back to me. I can tell you this much, he spat through gritted teeth. There is nothing dirty between Willow and me. That pill, it's not just for sex. I take it because I have a congenital heart condition. His voice cracked as he practically screamed at me. There, I've shared my personal medical history with you. Are you happy now? And with that, he shoved me off, shot to his feet, and stormed out of the apartment. Bang. The door slammed shut behind him. Willow stared at the door in stunned silence. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, finally, she spoke. So, he was sick. My head snapped toward her. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. And then, just when I thought she couldn't be any more absurd, she turned to me, frowning. George, why do you have to be so aggressive? Makoto has already had such a hard life, and yet you still had to hit him where it hurts. Doesn't your heart ache at all? I could feel my own pulse pounding in my skull. A sharp, throbbing pain. I didn't know if my heart hurt, but my head. My head felt like it was about to explode, especially when I looked into Willow's clear, yet infuriatingly naive, eyes. Just in case I wasn't mad enough, she added, let's go find him later so we can apologize. In that instant, all the strength drained from my body. I wordlessly reached for the only remaining bowl of rice on the table. Willow frowned, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something. Before she could, I slammed the bowl of rice directly onto her head. Rice scattered everywhere. White grains clung to her hair, sliding down her face. I looked her dead in the eye and said, Willow, let's break up. Being with you has been the biggest stain on my life. Chapter 5. George, are you insane? Willow screamed at me, her voice filled with grievance. I don't agree. You've gone too far today, yelling at me, hitting me, turning the whole house upside down. She paused, then suddenly narrowed her eyes as she scanned me up and down, as if a thought had just struck her. She frowned deeply and said, wait a minute, could it be that you? She hesitated, then continued. Could it be that you are the one who has someone else outside, and now you're making up all these accusations just to force me into a breakup? Her eyes widened in realization, as if she had just uncovered some great conspiracy. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became. She fixed her eyes on my face, closely examining my reaction, and when she saw the sheer disbelief and speechlessness twisting my expression, she gasped and shrieked. I knew it. You do have someone else. Her voice rang through the apartment like an air raid siren. Her eyes turned red, and her voice choked with emotion. George, how could you do this to me? At that moment, I genuinely couldn't tell if Willow was truly this dumb, or if she just thought I was dumb enough to fall for this nonsense. 3 glaring logical fallacies in one sentence. Changing the subject. False attribution. Strawman argument. Just moments ago, we were talking about her and Makoto. Instead of responding or explaining, she abruptly threw out a completely unrelated accusation that I had someone else. In doing so, she successfully blurred the focus of the conversation. Suddenly, her ambiguous behavior with Makoto was no longer the issue. Instead, I was the guilty party. She had turned my entirely reasonable doubts into unjust persecution. The moment I unraveled this twisted logic in my mind, my anger, fueled by betrayal and humiliation, began to dissipate. I started to feel cold. I looked at the woman in front of me, the woman I had spent almost 5 years with. When had she become like this? Had the image of that pure, radiant girl in my memory always been an illusion? A filter I had painted over reality? I didn't know. I only knew one thing. I didn't want to love her anymore. Willow stiffened under my gaze, shifting uncomfortably. Her voice turned dry and defensive. Why are you looking at me like that? If anyone here has done something wrong, it's you, not me, I asked calmly. Are you sure? I met her eyes without hesitation. Would you dare to swap phones with me and go through them together? Willow visibly flinched. Her gaze flickered downward, to the bowl I had overturned on her head, now fallen into her hands. It was the cat pattern bowl, the matching pair to Makoto's dog pattern bowl. From the rough texture, I could tell, these weren't store-bought, they were handmade. And then it hit me. A month ago, Willow had mentioned going to a craft studio. She had told me it was for a game event. But looking at these bowls now, it seemed she wasn't there alone. I didn't need her to confirm it. Instead, I let out a small, humorless smirk and asked, you two even went on a trip together, didn't you? Crash. The sound of ceramic shattering rang through the room. I didn't even need to look at Willow to know. Her face must have drained of all color. Chapter 6. It wasn't like that. We weren't exactly together. We just... Willow's voice trembled as she tried to explain. I didn't want to hear it. I cut her off immediately. No need to explain. I don't care where you went or what you did. I didn't care about the details of whatever she and Makoto had done. I didn't want to listen to a single word she had to say. From the moment I walked through that door, Makoto had shoved all the evidence right in my face. Matching bowls, matching cups, their casual, intimate interactions. So natural they no longer even flinched at each other's presence. The traces of Makoto scattered all over my home. Everything pointed to one undeniable fact. My home had been invaded, and Willow had let it happen. Whether or not she had physically cheated no longer mattered. I had one crystal clear thought in my mind. This relationship ends now. I had already drafted my final words in my head, but before I could say them, I asked instead, "You changed the door lock code, didn't you?" Willow froze, caught off guard by my sudden shift in topic. She furrowed her brows, as if trying to remember, then finally nodded. "I think so." Makoto kept forgetting the code, and when I was streaming, I couldn't hear the doorbell. He'd have to wait outside for hours, so I let him change it. The new password is 000817. I let the numbers roll over my tongue twice. I didn't even need to think only with my toes. That 000817 was Makoto's birthday. I had thought I could remain calm, thought I wouldn't let this ridiculous situation get to me anymore. But the second those words left her mouth, a fire roared back to life in my chest. I clenched my fist and swung my arm back, ready to slap her across the face. Willow flinched, her entire body trembling. She didn't even dare move. Instead, she tightly shut her eyes, bracing for impact. But the pain she was expecting never came. Curious, she peeked open one eye, only to see my raised hand slowly lowering back down. Relief instantly washed over her face, and she even managed to smile. She tilted her head, pouting playfully. "I knew you wouldn't hit me." Smack. Before she could finish, my palm landed hard across her cheek, sending her crashing to the ground. I glared at her, voice icy with rage. "Willow, this is my house. I bought it, paid for it in full." I locked eyes with her stunned expression and enunciated each word clearly. "You have no right to make any changes to it, including the door lock." Willow clutched her burning cheek, opening her mouth to protest, but no words came out. She tried, several times, but every excuse died in her throat. I gritted my teeth. I was gone for 6 months, and somehow my home has been infested with filth. I stood up and walked to the table, grabbing Makoto's blue cup. Then, I spotted Willow's pink cup in the corner and picked it up as well. I turned them over in my hands for a moment, then let go. Crash. The cups shattered into pieces, scattering across the floor. I sighed mockingly. Oops, slipped. I scanned the living room, and finally realized just how much it had changed. Cheap, ugly curtains, white lace combined with dark gray drapes, giving the room a morbid, funeral-like feel. A green sofa, decorated with 2 bright red rabbit pillows. On the purple bedspread, a white swan was embroidered. Next to it, Willow's name. And worst of all, the solid blackwood TV stand I had specially ordered had been painted an awful, vomit-colored yellow. The sheer hideousness of it made my head spin. I nearly choked on my own breath, fury boiling over. I stormed into the bedroom. The moment I saw the entirely new bedsheets, sheets I had never seen before, I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Willow followed closely behind me. She caught my reaction, then quickly glanced at the bed. Her face immediately flushed red. Panicking, she rushed to explain. "It's not what you think, Makoto. He got drunk after a breakup and threw up all over the bed. He felt guilty, so he insisted on buying a new set of sheets. If you don't like them, we can just buy new ones and switch them out." She hastily pulled out her phone, ready to place an order. I ignored her. Instead, I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures of the room. Then, I spoke. "Hold on a second. I need to call my lawyer and my financial advisor. They'll need to assess the total property damage." Willow froze. She stared at me in disbelief. "What do you mean?" I glanced at her indifferently. "Is it really that hard to understand? Did you really think you and Makoto could trash my home, and I'd just let it slide with a simple oops? My bad. Willow, I'm not running a charity." With that, I walked past her, heading toward my study. Willow stood frozen in place, her eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. Chapter 7. The 2 friends I had called over were efficient. In just over an hour, using my descriptions, receipts, and invoices for large purchases, they quickly estimated the total damage. That comes to 278,000 yuan. I laid out the neatly organized documents in front of Willow and showed her the photos I had taken. Pausing briefly, I continued. "The biggest losses are the custom-built kitchen fridge and cabinets, the living room TV stand, and the decorative tiles on the balcony and bathroom. All of these were altered without my consent, and I'll need to replace them entirely. And the study." Enough. Willow cut me off before I could finish. She stared at me as if I were some kind of monster. Makoto had my permission to make those changes. Her eyes flickered toward my 2 friends before pressing her lips together. "Do you really have to be this petty and dramatic? Fine. I'll have him apologize to you." "All right." She reached for her phone, about to message Makoto. I knocked on the table, motioning for her to look at me. It's not just him who needs to pay. I pointed at the document, tapping my finger on the names listed at the bottom, Makoto's name, followed by Willow's. You'll both be compensating me together. Willow's expression froze. She stared at me in disbelief. George, I'm your girlfriend. How could you be so heartless? Just because I got a little close to another guy, you're treating me like this. I grabbed the spare cold glass of water on the table and threw it directly into her face. Water dripped down her hair and soaked her clothes. I raised my voice. If you can't understand simple words, go see a doctor. I've already broken up with you, so stop trying to twist this into a relationship issue. You and Makoto caused extensive damage to my property. If you refuse to pay, we'll settle this at the police station. Willow's face darkened instantly. She yelled my name. George. If this were before, I might have felt guilty at the sight of her anger. I might have rushed to comfort her, to coax her into smiling again. But now, I didn't even want to look at her. Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone and dialed the police. The second the call connected, Willow suddenly lunged forward and ended the call. Her lips trembled as she spat. Fine, fine, fine. Her whole body shook with fury. You really have to do this. Huh, fine. We're breaking up, but don't come begging me later. I exhaled slowly. The pounding in my head only grew worse. How could she still be fixated on the breakup and infidelity, when the real issue was the 278,000 yuan worth of damage? In her mind, did our relationship outweigh everything, even financial loss? As Willow huffed and dramatically dragged her suitcase toward the door, I called out. Wait. She froze. A triumphant, smug smile crept onto her face as she turned back. I knew it. You still can't let me go, can you? If you apologize right now, I might be merciful enough to forgive you and take you back. I looked at her as if she were an idiot. No, I just need you to send me Makoto's contact information. You both need to pay for the damages. Neither of you are getting away with this. Willow's face fell. She reluctantly sent me Makoto's contact and stormed out without looking back. Before I shut the door, I heard a choked sob from outside. Didn't concern me. All I cared about now was getting my compensation. I created a group chat with Willow and Makoto. I named it Compensation Chat. The first message that popped up was from Willow. Love Nest. I glanced at it and ignored her stupidity. Thankfully, she quickly deleted the message. I tagged both of them and sent the detailed compensation list. Please transfer the payment within 10 days. Then, I muted the chat. I didn't care how they decided to split the amount. That was their problem, not mine. I spent the rest of the day cleaning my apartment, throwing out all the garbage that had taken over my home. Without all that tacky, ridiculous junk, the place finally looked somewhat normal again. The next day, I changed the door lock and installed security cameras at the entrance and inside the apartment. On the third day, I hired a deep cleaning team to sanitize every inch of the apartment. While cleaning the bedroom, one of the workers found something under the bed, a ripped pink lingerie set. Do you want us to throw this away? They asked. I almost told them to burn it, but after a moment, I changed my mind. Wait, I took a photo of it and sent it to the compensation chat. Is this yours? Makoto immediately responded with a voice message. Yeah. It's mine. So what? I bought it for Willow. She never wore stuff like that for you, did she? Jealous? I raised an eyebrow. My reply was calm. That's great. I found it under the bed. Since you two slept in my bed, I don't want it anymore. I'll be adding the cost of a new mattress and solid wood bed frame to the compensation list, 46,000 yuan. The chat went silent for a full minute. Then, Makoto suddenly spammed the group with multiple 1-minute voice messages, ranting like a madman. I smirked and ignored them. Instead, I sent legal documents prepared by my lawyer, outlining property damage laws. Makoto, who had been full of bravado just seconds ago, immediately went quiet. A long pause. Then Willow finally typed, George, do you really have to do this to me? I sent another message. Intentionally damaging property can result in 3 to 7 years in prison. She stopped responding. For the first time, the group chat fell completely silent. On the 8th day, Willow and Makoto finally showed up at my apartment. Willow instinctively tried to enter the door code, only for the system to deny her 3 times in a row. Her face went pale. That's when she realized I had changed the lock and the code. She called me. Her first words. You changed the lock. You changed the password. I tried your birthday, my birthday, our anniversary. None of them work. Her voice trembled, like she was about to faint. George, do you really not love me anymore? We've known each other for 10 years, 5 years of dating. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I frowned. Are you saying I should be asking for emotional damages too? Click. The call ended abruptly. I checked my security camera feed. Outside the door, Willow stood there, looking completely shattered. Makoto, noticing her distress, pulled her into his arms and let her bury her face in his chest. Chapter 8. The two of them clung to each other at my doorstep. their gazes locked, and before I knew it, they were kissing passionately. Their hands started to roam, slipping under each other's clothes, right there, in front of my home. I cleared my throat, took a moment to compose myself, then switched on the intercom. Need me to bring out a bed? That'll be an extra charge. The moment my voice boomed from the speakers, both of them jumped like they'd been electrocuted. Makoto panicked so badly that he shoved Willow away with full force. She staggered backward and landed flat on her ass, wincing in pain. Without a second thought, Makoto bolted, not even bothering to look back. Willow, still rubbing her sore backside, glared at the camera, looking utterly humiliated. Then, sniffling, she scrambled to her feet and chased after him. What a show. I saved the recording and sent it to the compensation chat, along with a message. If you love each other, do it properly, but not in front of my house. Unless you want me to call the cops. You wouldn't want me to add door replacement to the compensation list, right? Neither Willow nor Makoto replied, but I knew they saw it. Probably rewatched it several times, too. Not that I cared. The 10-day deadline was approaching, and all I cared about was my money. Willow had no money. She claimed to be a singer, but she was tone deaf. Her fan count never even hit 4 digits. It was just a hobby. She didn't invest in professional streaming equipment, nor did she ever consider making an income from it. For the past few years, I had been supporting her completely. She used my credit card for everything: shopping, food, bills. The moment we broke up, I canceled her card. I was 100% sure that her bank account had less than 5,000 yuan left in it. As for Makoto, his restaurant was failing. If he couldn't even keep his business running, I doubted he had any savings. So I was curious, how the hell did they manage to gather 320,000 yuan? What I didn't expect was for them to bring the money in a briefcase, swaggering up to me like some mafia deal. Willow yanked open the case, grabbed a handful of cash, and hurled it toward my face. George, you just wanted money, right? Take it. I caught the bills midair, quickly checked them. Real money. Interesting. Willow reached for another stack, ready to chuck more at me, but I snatched the briefcase before she could. Enough theatrics. Let's go to the bank and verify it. I gave her no chance to continue her tantrum, leaving her so furious that she nearly choked. On the way to the bank, Willow and Makoto held hands tightly. They clung to each other, whispering, hugging, kissing. Willow kept sneaking glances at me, waiting for some sign of jealousy or regret. I didn't spare them a single glance. I only cared about the money. Once the total amount was confirmed and deposited into my account, I exhaled in relief. Finally, this disaster was over. I turned to leave, but Willow grabbed my sleeve. I frowned and looked down at her. Her lips trembled, but she hesitated. For a long moment, she said nothing. Just as I was about to lose patience, she finally spoke, voice shaking. From now on, we'll never see each other again. Take care. Then, she lowered her voice, almost whispering, you know, you'll never find another woman as good as me. Was she serious? I almost laughed. Was she trying to gross me out on purpose? Without a word, I peeled her fingers off my sleeve one by one. Then, with a smirk, I said, then I wish you two a long, happy life together. May you have many, many children. With that, I walked away, deleted and blocked both of them, went home, packed my things, and put my apartment up for sale. Shortly after, I boarded my flight overseas. 2 months later, I got a call. Apparently, Willow had gone back to my old apartment in the middle of the night, and got into a fight with the new owner. It got so bad that they both ended up at the police station. Willow caused a scene, threatening self-harm, demanding to see me. The new owner contacted the realtor, who then reached out to me. That's when I found out Willow had borrowed money to pay me back. Not just 320,000 yuan, she had borrowed 500,000 yuan. After repaying me, she spent the rest on vacations and shopping with Makoto. They had the time of their lives, until the debt collectors came knocking. Willow had no money, so she asked Makoto to pitch in. Makoto agreed immediately, and the next morning, Makoto was gone. So was Willow's phone, wallet, and the last few hundred yuan she had left. With nowhere to turn, she thought of me again. She wanted to beg for forgiveness, but when she saw another woman in my home, she lost it and started a fight. That's how she ended up at the police station. And now, the realtor cautiously asked me over the phone, brother, she's insisting on talking to you. What do you want to do? I barely looked up from my work email. Ignore her. I don't know her. If she broke the law, let the cops deal with her. She deserves everything coming her way. I hung up. A few moments later, the realtor sent me a video. Willow collapsed on the floor, sobbing hysterically. I didn't watch it. I didn't reply. This was her choice. She had no one to blame but herself.